What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today, let's click on that. But I will be doing NBA 2021 Power Rankings of the preseason. Obviously, sorry. The season's kicking off today. I'm a little bit late, but I made this ranking before the game started, so sorry about being late. It's been a crazy week, but yeah. It should be interesting. Let's get into the power rankings. This season should be fun. Starting out with the trash tier, obviously this is what it sounds like. These are the worst teams. There's only 2 teams in this tier at the moment. Starting out with the worst team, which I think is the Orlando Magic, enter into the year. Obviously, they drafted Jalen Suggs, and a lot of people are hopeful for this Magic team. I don't think Jalen Suggs is going to have the best year, though. I think that this Magic team struggles a little bit to start out the year. Just struggles this year, and I think they're the worst team in the NBA. Moving on to number 29, which is going to be the Rockets. Now, Green is insane. Don't get me wrong. But the pieces around this team just suck. This team, John Wall is outdated. Victor Oladipo, his time's passed. It's just a bad roster behind Green. Green's going to have to really carry around this team. This team didn't really do anything valuable in free agency. So, yeah, they're the second worst team. Besides drafting Green, which is really the highlight of this year for the Rockets, they're going to struggle. And moving on to the bad tier now, and obviously the bad tier are just bad teams, as you can tell, most likely. Just bad teams that, could upset, definitely higher chances, but than the lower team, but I don't really see happening. They're not in the playoff conversation anyway. So let's start out with number 28, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was tempted to put this team in the trash tier, but, Colin Sexton's still on the roster, shockingly. So this team should be able to compete a little bit, and, they got a decent roster with Kevin Love's experienced veterans, so yeah, number 20, but they're not going to do anything all year. This is going to be the same old Cavaliers since LeBron left. Number 27, the Oklahoma City Thunder. If I can find them. Here they are. Thunder, you look at the Thunder, solid program, solid team. Sorry. But the Thunder, I think, are the, kind of like the Cavaliers. They're going to have they have Gillis Alexander. They're going to be able to compete a little bit, but not too much. And that's why they're number 28. These are 2 very similar teams at the bottom of this bad tier. Let's start out with a team that I'm excited to watch, the Pistons, and I have more faith in Cade Cunningham than Green, as you can see from my rankings. I saw Cade Cunningham in college. Green, I didn't really pay too much attention in. But Cade Cunningham is going to light up the scoreboard. In Oklahoma State, literally carried that team. That roster was not very good. And he carried that team to the number 4 seed in March Madness. This is the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. And I think this Pistons team did a decent job of building around him this free agency. So I think they'll have a decent year, but again, not good enough. So those are going to be the 3 teams in the bad tier. Let's move on to the in the hunt tier, starting out with Toronto. Toronto, I think that they could be. Let me just explain this tier first. This tier, obviously, what it sounds like is these are just in the hunt teams that in the hunt for the play-in, for the playoffs, but I don't think they'll make it by the end of the year. They could. That's why they're in this tier. Starting out, as I said, Toronto. The talent definitely isn't there. I mean, Pascal Siakam not having his year last year. DeRozan's gone. This roster's just not good. This roster doesn't have a lot of talent. Obviously, with the pick, I forgot his name. It's on my finger, on my tip of my tongue, but I forgot. But yeah, I mean the Raptors, they're well coached. That's why they're in the hunt here. I think they could slide into the play-in tournament like they did almost last year. But that's where they are for the time being at number 25. Moving on to number 24, that's going to be the Timberwolves. And I'm having a tough time with the Timberwolves. I could definitely see this team as a play-in tournament team. I could definitely see this team as the worst team in the league. It's hard to justify Minnesota. Are they going to be the team that we saw at the end of the year where they started upsetting some teams and playing good basketball? Or is this going to be the team that we see this year? I mean, at the beginning of the year, that just sucks with Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell. I think we see a mix of those two. Inconsistency, I think we'll see, and that's why they're ranked number 24. But like I said, this team could definitely be a play-in tournament team and maybe even a playoff team. Like when playoff 6 seeds or above, I could see that team being. But that's where I have them right now is number 24. Moving on to number 23, the Spurs. Very similar situation to the Raptors. Not very good talent, but good, well coached. Basically, the same thing goes for this team, as I said with the Raptors, though. You know, Greg Popovich, he can bring a team to the play-in tournament, any team. He did it last year. Can he do it again? I think he can, but I don't think it'll happen. So the Spurs will be right there. And the last team of this list is going to be the Wizards. Oh, wait, no, not the last team, but we're going to take a pause. So, yeah, the Wizards at number 22 for the moment. You just look at the Wizards right now, and you just see a team that's, without Russell Westbrook. I think their team improved from last year, that's for sure. Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal's going to be insane. This whole team is going to be solid. Do I think this team will miss out on the play-in tournament? Yes, I think they barely missed it out. I think that Bradley Beal just cannot carry this team, even though he's very good on the offensive end. Their roster is solid, but I think they'll barely miss out to the playoffs, the play-in tournament, to this next team, the Pacers. I just think the Pacers are the more well-rounded team all around. They got solid defense, and they always seem to compete no matter what the year brings them. So that's where the Pacers will be. But, I mean, both those teams, I could feel swapping right there. But for now, that's where the Pacers are. Moving on to number 20, the Pelicans. They're going to be staying in the in-hunt tier. We're not into that play-in tournament tier yet, even though the Pacers are in it. They are the better team over the Pacers. I would see them in the play-in tournament in the East, but they're in the West, so missing out in the play-in tournament. But the Pelicans, Zion Williamson will continue to play good basketball. They got, other than that, they don't have the best roster around him. I mean, obviously, got some solid pieces, but really it really is just all about being number 20 for this team. Really is all about just sliding in there and just about finding consistency for me to see them in the play-in tournament. But number 19, the Kings, that's where I see them miss. So yeah, obviously the play-in tournament tier is just teams that I see in the play-in tournament. You probably figured that out by now. The Kings, it's tough to adjust the Kings. I mean, I think they did a lot of good things building around De'Aaron Fox and this other roster. I think that they finally make the play-in tournament, which is really what these fans are hoping for. Do I see them in the playoffs? No, I don't think they make it out of the play-in tournament, but they're in it. They have a shot. if they're in it. And that's where I think they go. I think it's very difficult between the Kings and the Pelicans. I'm going with the Kings, though. They have a solid roster. Anyway, moving on to number 18. Might be a little bit low for some people for this team. The Charlotte Hornets come in at 18. This is just where I feel them best. LaMelo Ball, I think, will have an even better season than last year. But for the Hornets, for the Hornets, I don't really see them as making the playoffs. I think it's very similar to last year. They didn't really improve their team at all, actually. So I think this is a very similar team. We're going to see them, just like them last year. So not just go to their standing last year. That's where I think they'll be. And then moving on to number 17, and this might be low for some people, this Boston Celtics. I think the Celtics obviously have injuries last year, but I think we see a very similar thing this year. Obviously that was a frustrating year with injuries and stuff, but I think that's the Celtics we see again. Jason Tatum is very good. Can he carry this team to the playoffs? No, I don't think he can. Well, no, never mind. Sorry, scratch that. I think they will make the playoffs, but as an 8 seed and not doing very much. But, the Boston Celtics, I just don't see them being that good. I don't have faith in this team to, be the team that we were expecting entering into the year last year. So that's where they are at the moment at number 17. And then moving on to number 16, we're going to have the Miami Heat. Very frustrating exit to the postseason last year. I predicted them to beat the Bucks in the first round, but that obviously didn't happen. The Heat, though, in the play-in tournament, definitely are there. You got Jimmy Butler. You got this solid team. Didn't really improve the roster. So they're going to be, again, kind of like the Hornets and the Celtics. Same team, same winning percentage. I think they get the 7th seed this year at number 16. Moving on to number 15, the Grizzlies. You see the Grizzlies right here. Ja Morant, I think, the Grizzlies will definitely be able to make it into the play-in tournament, but as the 9 seed, just like last year. Very similar season I think we have in the Western Conference this year. But, Ja Morant will continue to get better. This is a very young Grizzlies team. In the Western Conference, it's hard to put this team above other teams, though. That's where I have them at number 15. Moving on to number 14, the New York Knicks. I think the New York Knicks are a playoff team, not making the play-in. But we're not done with the play-in. I think Western Conference teams are better than the Knicks. The Knicks, Julius Randle, hopefully he has a better season. Same season. And this team is able to replicate last year, but just do better in the playoffs. That's really all the Knicks want. And I think that's what they get from New York. And then moving on to number 13, the LA Clippers. In the play-in tournament, at 8, this might shock some of you, but remember, Kawhi Leonard is out for probably the whole season. And this is just a team that Paul George, I don't think Paul George can carry this team to a lot of wins in a very rugged Western Conference. So I think that the Clippers get handed the 8th seed right there. All right, moving on to number 12, the Warriors. So the Warriors rounding out the play-in tournament here, I think will be the 7th seed. Might be a little bit frustrating for some people. This is tough to make out the Western Conference, but that's where I have the Warriors, mainly because Klay Thompson, I don't think, has the same type of year he did last year. Hopefully he does. I don't think it happens. So Steph Curry will obviously carry this team. And other than that, this is the same team as last year. And a play-in tournament team. Anyway, moving on to the playoff teams. Obviously, Knicks already in there, but this is obviously playoff teams, but just not contenders quite yet. Starting out with the Portland Trailblazers at number 11. Portland. Looking at a schedule looking at a team, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, basically same roster, same team. I mean, there's a lot of same rosters. So 6 seed, just like last year. I think that's where they're going to get to. But, yeah, they'll be at number 11. And then moving on to number 10, the Chicago Bulls. At number 10, look at the Bulls and a roster for the Chicago Bulls. That very much improved. We see the getting DeMar DeRozan, having Lonzo Ball. Not to mention they have Zach LaVine and what's his name? Nikola Vucevic. I forgot his name for a minute there, but that is a stacked roster right there. I think that they get the number 5 seed. Obviously, there's going to be some communication errors in the first part of the year, but that's really with any big team that just signs some big players. So the Bulls, I mean, they got a bad bench. I mean, whenever you're going to sign these big players, you're going to have a bad bench. So I think that they don't have nearly as good of a year as they will in a few seasons down the road where all of these players start to become very much better players and then they gel, and this is definitely a dangerous team for the years to come. Right now, I see them as a 5 seed. They are very dangerous. You do not want to play this team in the postseason. Moving on to number 9, the 76ers. I mean, the Ben Simmons thing that's going on is just insane. The drama. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Why does Ben Simmons have to do this? He's lucky that the Sixers aren't the ones that are telling him, oh, you need to get out of here and stuff. He's the one that's, conveying that, I want out. So, trying to make it so it feels like the Sixers' fault when really it's just Ben's. But the Sixers at number 9 getting the 4 seed in the East. But, I mean, this is just the same thing for the Sixers where, obviously they played very good last year. I think with this drama, they're going to have a much worse season record standpoint. And in the locker room, it's just going to be a mess. Obviously, I think they get the 4 seed, but definitely not a good situation there in Philadelphia. Anyway, moving on to number 8, the Atlanta Hawks, the team that beat the Sixers in the postseason last year in the semifinals round, in the Eastern Conference semifinals. So, the Hawks, you look at this team, Trae Young continuing to get better. This roster looking solid. The defense is looking good. This is just a team that could definitely be a contender by the end of the year. I don't see them there yet. I think that they're going to be fit into that 3 seed in the East, which is a very high standard, but that's where I see this Hawks team. This is going to be a very solid team. They're going to have a rematch between the Knicks, I think, in the postseason. But, yeah, the Hawks sliding into the playoffs. Having a good season. I think this is going to be a breakout year. And soon this team is going to be contenders in the years to come. Also, a very rising team in the Mavericks. These two teams, very rising. Mavericks have the edge. I think that they fit into the 5 seed in a very rugged Western Conference. The Mavericks, Luka Doncic will still do his thing. Top 5 player potential, I think, potentially for Luka. And this MVP candidate to start out the year for sure. Obviously, play hasn't begun, but I think the Mavs are going to do some wonders for this team. They're going to play some good basketball, and they're going to have a good season. Moving on to number 6, rounding out this tier, fitting into the number 5 spot in the West, the Nuggets. I really want to put the Nuggets into contenders. The only thing that's holding me back is, can Jamal Murray play like Jamal Murray even coming off this injury? It's going to be difficult for him. I think that the Nuggets definitely have the talent to be the best team in the West. If Jamal Murray is the Jamal Murray we knew. I mean, that duo between Jokic and Murray is just insane. It's going to be tough to stop those two. But, I mean, for now, the Nuggets fit in right there at number 6, but definitely very close. I mean, there's a gap between the contenders and the playoff, but it's very slim between the Nuggets and the contenders. All right, so moving on to the contenders here. Obviously, these are going to be the best teams, in my opinion. Very similar to last year. I see these teams starting up with number 5, the Lakers. If they can stay healthy, this is a deadly team. Do I think the Russell Westbrook trade was foolish by the Lakers? Yes, I do. This team was already a contender. They had a very good base around them. This is just a bunch of veterans piled into a roster. Do I think this could definitely work? It probably won't, though. I'm putting this team at the number 4 spot. Do I think... I mean, whenever you have LeBron James on your roster, you're going to be a contender. But definitely the most questions entering into the year out of these contenders. Anyway, moving on to number 4, the Suns. Same Suns team, really. Hopefully Chris Paul can continue his brilliance this year. They're not going to be able to sniff out the trophy this year, though. I think the Suns obviously get the... Suns get the 2. So Lakers get the 3, sorry. Nuggets 4, Mavs 5. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. So, yeah. The Suns, Devin Booker is still going to play good ball, but this is going to be the same team I think we see last year. They'll start out better. They didn't start out this good. Last year, I think they have that this year, and that's where they'll sit at number 4. Anyway, moving on to this year's NBA champions, the Milwaukee Bucks, getting that one done, beating the Suns in the championship. Do I think they'll be right back this year in the championship? Maybe. That's why they're in contenders. Giannis, I mean, he's such a great player. Number 1 player in the league, in my opinion. But the Bucks, at this good of a team, this good of a roster, you cannot count them out from sliding into the playoffs. So I think that this team making the championship again. I don't think it'll happen, though, but it definitely can. Moving on to number 2, the Utah Jazz. A lot of people might be confused why the Jazz are so high. The Jazz, I mean, they just improved their roster even more entering into the year as they did last year with the backups. Same team, kind of like all these other teams. Their roster will, I think, be good enough to play this good, and I think that this is going to be a contender. They just need to find consistency in the postseason to do better. And then rounding out the number 1 team, the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving, do I think he'll be back? Yes, I do. I think he will comply to this COVID vaccine. If not, they'll trade him for some good player out there. I mean, Kyrie Irving's worth a lot, so... the Nets, they're going to be back. Number 1 team in the NBA. No surprise for sure. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Like the video if you want to. If you enjoyed the content. But anyway, peace out.